An enormous $1.1 trillion bank has just made yet another Bitcoin price prediction. Check this out. Standard Chartered has come out and said that $125,000 Bitcoin could just be coming a lot quicker than most people expect it could. But they're not the only multi-trillion and multi-hundred billion dollar bank in America and around the world that are not only actively buying Bitcoin, like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are quietly doing right now in mid-2024. But there's a lot of other banks doing the same thing. So today we're going to be having a look at the long and interesting list of Bitcoin price predictions that this trillion-dollar bank has made. We can see April 2023, another 100K Bitcoin price prediction. July 2023, they upped their prediction. March 2024, April 2024, September 2024. I don't think I need to spell it out to you guys that this bank is incredibly bullish on Bitcoin. And we're going to be talking about why they seem to come out every 2 to 3 months with a new banging Bitcoin price prediction, okay? Before we get into any of that, let's play a clip of their CEO, Jeff Kendrick, spitting absolute fire on CNBC.
What is your updated price target for Bitcoin at the end of 2024 now? It's higher than 100,000?
I think somewhere in the 100 to 120,000 range by the end of next year is now looking likely. When I put out my first note a couple of months ago looking for 100,000, I talked about a number of drivers, and quite frankly, on each of those, I'm even more constructive than I was a couple of months ago.
So we can see here Jeff Kendrick, the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, is even more constructive now than he was previously. Now, this is one of his first Bitcoin price predictions. Have a look at the price on the CNBC homepage as he's giving this interview. I'm going to get my big head out of the way, but you guys can see Bitcoin was at $29,000. And this Chad was getting on CNBC saying Bitcoin's going to hit 100K by the end of 2024. Right now, Bitcoin's at about 64,000. So it has more than doubled since Jeff Kendrick put his manlyhood on the line, so to say, and made a really bold Bitcoin price prediction, okay? And we do know that October, November, and December are Bitcoin's best performing months. On average, Bitcoin returns somewhere around 30 to 40% in the month of October alone. So if history does repeat, we're nearly at that $100,000 Bitcoin price prediction that Jeff talked about all the way back in early 2023. I think it's super fascinating that he's come out more recently and said, look, doesn't matter who wins the election, 125K is coming, no matter who wins, whether it's Trump or whether it's crazy lady who wants to implement unrealized capital gains on your money. That's right. Kamala Harris, the current president or VP of America, wants to tax your money and your profits that you've made in your superannuation account or your property portfolio, even if you do not sell your assets. Again, that's probably a rabbit hole for another day. I want to talk about what is the latest Bitcoin price prediction from Standard Chartered. Because again, I think it's absolutely fascinating that they just continue coming out and beating the drum on these massive Bitcoin price calls, and they've been nothing but correct so far, okay? This is obviously fascinating because of how big they are. They are one of the biggest banks in the world. And a lot of people, they're forgetting that. They don't understand that this bank is absolutely enormous, and we can see Forbes is tracking them very nicely. Forbes has said right here that Standard Chartered Bank has a lazy 84,000 employees, okay? And they are the 222nd largest bank in the world. At the time of this article, they had $812 billion of assets. Again, every website, every tracker tracks this metric slightly differently. The different one that I found said they had $1.1 trillion of assets as of recording, okay? So if you think the other banks aren't paying attention to what a $1.1 trillion bank is doing with their money, I think you're crazy. And I really just do not think that it is, likely that the other banks are not paying attention to what this massive, enormous $1.1 trillion bank is doing. Now, check this out. I got some receipts to back this up. institutional Bitcoin ETF holders above $1 billion of assets under management. So have a look at this little graphic. I really like it. We can see there are 11 banks who hold more than $85 million of Bitcoin ETFs. We can see a pension fund of 163 million. We can see 18 trusts that have 378 million. You can see that there are an absolute ton of seriously big players in the Bitcoin space right now. And that is because the biggest banks in the world are absolutely FOMOing into Bitcoin. Absolutely FOMOing. Okay. This here is, I want to show you guys a really cool little graphic that kind of, puts things into a little bit more perspective. I am a sucker for charts and graphics and images. You guys know that. And especially when they come from the visual capitalist. Don't tell me the visual capitalist is failing me today. That would be a sad day. No, I think we're good. You guys can see it. This is some of the biggest Bitcoin ETFs compared. Grayscale, iBit, Fidelity, ARK, Bitwise, VanEck, Invesco. Let's not forget how big VanEck is. Okay, VanEck is absolutely enormous. And obviously BlackRock is absolutely enormous. But even these guys, these asset managers, like they are just as important as some of the largest US banks like JP Morgan Chase, who quietly disclosed buying Bitcoin spot ETFs in 2024 while their CEO was publicly bashing Bitcoin. That's the even more interesting thing that I think we need to be paying attention to. Okay. And, our man, Jeff Kendrick here, he is going absolutely everywhere shilling Bitcoin. This is an earlier interview. This is one of the first interviews he gave on CNN all the way back in April 2023. I've got the list. I've got the receipts here of all of the times Jeff Kendrick has gone on news absolutely shilling Bitcoin. He's been very consistent. April 2023, he's talking about 100K Bitcoin. At the time, where was the Bitcoin price? Nowhere near $30,000. It was in the 20s. But he stayed consistent. He stayed the course. And he actually has a really interesting long-term view on Bitcoin that I want to show you guys. Now, this is the most interesting one because everybody wants to know, okay, how big is Bitcoin's total addressable market cap? Well, this here, I've gone to the source, and this is Standard Chartered's website. So again, I want to preface this just for a moment so you know potentially how big these reports could be. Okay. Standard Chartered is a $1 trillion bank. They're in the top 200 biggest banks in the world, and they're literally writing reports like this, the $50 trillion question. They have some really cool little graphics here. You guys can play around with this after the fact and have a look at it at your own leisurely pace and time. I'm not going to take you through this whole little animation that Standard Chartered has. It's pretty cool. But they've got a little 10-page report talking about digital assets. The takeaway is that they are incredibly bullish on Bitcoin in the long term. Okay. Again, maybe they're a little bit lost to shitcoinery here, and maybe they're trying to, let's say, squeeze as much juice out of that lemon as they possibly can by including words such as crypto and tokenized assets on their website. I mean, yes, they're probably, falling prey to their incentives, so to say. But in every interview that Jeff Kendrick does, he only mentions Bitcoin by name, which is, I think, very bullish. He only makes strong predictions about Bitcoin. But from their website, they believe $30.1 trillion of tokenized real-world assets by 2034. If they're saying that a basket of crypto trash, could be worth $32 trillion, how much do they think Bitcoin could be worth by 2034? That's a question we should be pondering, okay? Because their CEO only ever gets up on news or gets onto the news, and he only really talks about Bitcoin. Let's hear him here in April 2024, after the price has more than doubled since his first Bitcoin prediction, and see how he feels about Bitcoin and see whether he is still as confident as he was in early 2023.
Bitcoin leverage positions were liquidated. So the market is now looking much more square going into the halving, if you like, in terms of leverage. So that's very helpful. So hopefully we can get through the halving tonight, get some slightly more positive news out of the Middle East, which would be fantastic. And I suspect that can then see Bitcoin start to retrend higher. I'm still looking for $150,000 by the end of this year. So less important on the halving, but from where we are now, it's starting to look like we can push higher again.
I'm going to reiterate what you just said. With Bitcoin trading below 65,000. Your year-end forecast, 150,000 per coin for Bitcoin and 200,000 by the end of 2025. What are the specific reasons for your expectations that we'll see a notable lift from here?
So part of it is those ETF inflows. As I mentioned, they've stalled for now, but I anticipate going from the start of this year to when the ETF market in the US is mature, we'll get between 50 and $100 billion of inflow. So far we've had 12 billion, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I suspect that can now happen over about an 18 months to 24 month period. When that happened for gold, when we went in the US from no spot ETF market in 2004 to that market gradually maturing, the price of gold multiplied by 4.3 times. So that could get us to that 150 to 200,000 range as sort of input number one. Input number two is over time when you...
Before I talk about input number two, just want to mention something else. So he gave this interview on the day of the Bitcoin halving. At the time, the Bitcoin ETF inflows were around $10 billion, like he said. Right now, BlackRock alone holds over $20 billion in assets under management, okay? A lot of people thought, hey, we've seen $10 billion come in the first couple of months. These Bitcoin ETF flows, they're going to stall as price slows down. That's not happened. BlackRock alone has $20 billion of assets under management. And a lot of people made fun of Jeff Kendrick, this CEO of a $1.1 trillion bank, for making such bold calls, saying we could see $50 billion of inflows over the next 18 to 24 months. Well, we're up to 20. We are well and truly on the way. Well and truly. Okay. Now let's listen to the second big catalyst that Jeff believes could drive us to that $125,000 or $150,000 price target he continues to talk about.
You have enough investors, i.e. investors are fully sated in terms of their Bitcoin exposure, which hasn't been the case before the ETFs. But over time, if we get those ETF flows in, that should be where we end up. In terms of a portfolio between Bitcoin and gold, you should get to about 80% gold, 20% Bitcoin. And for that, even if gold prices were to go sideways again, that gets you to that $150,000 to $200,000 mark in terms of Bitcoin. So there's a few factors that are all driving to roughly the same level. I think medium term, if we get to 200,000, because of the institutional flows as well, it's much more likely that Bitcoin won't have a large retracement, which it did have in previous cycles. So again, that hard...
Is that the Bitcoin super cycle he's talking about? He's saying the institutional flows might stop Bitcoin from seeing these big drawdowns that we do often commonly see in Bitcoin. Interesting. Again, we've speculated about a potential super cycle here on the channel a lot. Okay. I do think it's likely. I think it's more probable that eventually Bitcoin's not going to see these big 80% corrections. Okay. And all of the people who are going to sell Bitcoin at 200K or 300K, expecting that we're going to see that 80% drawdown to 80K, they're going to get their faces ripped off. Okay. That is going to happen. Okay. I don't know when. Maybe it happens this cycle. I've been on record for saying I think there's probably a 50% probability we do break all of these models this cycle. Last cycle, I wrote like an 8,000 word goddamn essay, and I said there's probably about a 30% chance we break these models to the upside. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I think as the fundamentals have continued to shift in a very positive direction since 2021, we're now in 2024, I think there's a 50% chance we do break these models to the upside. Your power law model, your rainbow chart model, your diminishing returns theory of Bitcoin, I think they're all dead. They're all going to get blown out of the water. The only question is when. I think it's really interesting. We obviously have Michael Saylor, who's been telling us for years that all of these models are going to be destroyed. Now we have Jeff Kendrick from Standard Chartered, a $1 trillion bank, telling us the same thing. All these models will eventually be destroyed. The only question is when. And again, this is going to be a massive reason for why these models could be destroyed. The Bitcoin ETFs are buying 4,808 Bitcoin per day. Thank you for the comment, Flame & Co. 1. It's a great comment. This can be funny. What is the chance you write an 8,000 word essay again? 80% chance? Probably higher. I don't know if you guys know or not. I'm halfway through two different books. One of them's 60,000 words. One of them's 45,000 words at the time of recording. If you guys, again, if you do prefer writing, I always encourage you guys and remind you guys that we are putting out at least weekly emails on a lot of these topics we talk about in the live streams. Right now, we're only really writing about the cream of the crop, so to say, in regards to the live streams. So if you prefer a short 5 to 10 minute read, as opposed to me ranting for 20, sometimes 30, sometimes 40 minutes on a live stream, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the Substack. It is free. It is linked down below. And we talk about some of the signal that we think is being missed, okay? This is not yet another Bitcoin newsletter. Like everybody just talks about the news. We try to do things in a little bit of a different way. The same with the live streams. So again, if you like the live streams, you'll love the emails. Thank you, Satwise, for the kind comments. I appreciate that, my friend. Links to the free Substack are in the live chat link. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Standard Chartered before I get distracted once again. Let's have a look at Standard Chartered. I want to show you guys one of the more recent videos I've got of the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Kendrick, and him just pumping bullish hopium into the veins of everybody watching Yahoo Finance. The high-level summary, Jeff Kendrick believes we're going to be seeing $200,000 Bitcoin irrespective of who is in the White House. Does not matter. He doesn't care who's in the White House. And he also said he expects the Bitcoin ETF flows to continue increasing. Now, I think that's a little bit interesting and a little bit fascinating, because if I show you guys the data, the raw data, I'm going to bring this up for you guys so you guys can see what is going on. Is Jeff Kendrick right again? Okay, well, we can see 2,000 Bitcoin was scooped up in the Bitcoin ETFs yesterday on the 24th of September. The flows have picked up a little bit, but to be fair, they are still trending sideways. We haven't seen a big trend up for about 6 months now. Jeff is predicting they're going to increase. Maybe they do. Let's keep an eye on this. I think Robert makes an interesting comment. 200K. Are we bearish today? Tend to agree. We have some people in the live chat. CB is lip reading him. I can't lip read. So kudos, CB. I apologize for the fact there's no audio. I've been trying to improve my audio game recently. Okay. So I want to know about the audio as well. Do you prefer the audio when it's here on my collar? I think it's a bit shitter. Excuse my French. I feel like it's better here. Let me know where you prefer it. Holding it in my hand or on the collar. I want live reaction. But let's talk more about Jeff Kendrick and the bullishness that we are beginning to see. Okay, I think it's really fascinating. Now, we mentioned Kamala Harris. And we mentioned why we could be seeing unrealized capital gains taxes come in. I want to answer a question. I love answering questions in the live chat. A good friend was fact checking me. So I love fact checks. I welcome fact checks. And I want to find it because it was a good question about unrealized capital gains taxes. Miracle Mike says, got to fact check you, mate. Thank you. Harris isn't for unrealized capital gains tax. Okay. Are we sure Kamala Harris is not for unrealized capital gains tax? Because I saw this recently. We made a video on what I'm about to show you a couple of months ago, where the Supreme Court had a perfect opportunity to completely outlaw the possibility of unrealized capital gains taxes forever. They had a chance in a court case that's been going on for 7 years now. But as we can see by the headlines I'm about to show you, Supreme Court upholds the constitutionality, that's a mouthful, of repatriation tax in the Moore decision. So look at the date. That's June 2024. I'm going to show you some more receipts. I'm not just going to try to cherry pick headlines. I'm going to show you as many receipts as I can. Here's another one. This is an article we talked about earlier in the year. Unrealized capital gains tax survives the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay, what's the date on this? Is this the same story? It is June 2024. So again, we made a whole video talking about unrealized capital gains taxes earlier in the year in June. And I hope these receipts are helpful. If Kamala Harris wasn't a fan of unrealized capital gains taxes, why is she allowing the Supreme Court to not squash the possibility of unrealized capital gains taxes when they had the perfect opportunity to do so this June? Okay, let's have a look at another article. And again, I'm not showing you guys far-right conspiracy theory articles that tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists like me cite. This is from Forbes. Forbes says Supreme Court refuses to upend the tax code in ruling on unrealized capital gains taxes. What's the date? June 20th, 2024. It's recent. Only a couple of months old now, but it looks as if this bad boy right here, Uncle Sam, the Supreme Court, he's going to tax you guys out of the absolute wazoo. Okay, this is something we always talk about here on the channel. This is something I always talk about over on the Green Candle YouTube channel with my good buddy Brandon. Again, you can see his channel linked in the comments. We're going to be doing a live stream together later today on his channel. So make sure you go and subscribe to his channel, because him and myself do 2 live streams a week over there. So definitely go and check that out. Sounds like I have a fiesta in the hallway here in Colombia. I don't know what's going on. I wonder if you guys can hear that or not. Anyway, back on track, Luke. Let's talk more about Standard Chartered and maybe answer some more questions before we talk more about Standard Chartered. Producer Pam says hi. Okay, good. How can you possibly put tax on a gain you have no idea of its value and you get a refund on a capital loss? That would become a huge cheat opportunity for CPAs to exploit. There's always games for the CPAs to exploit. Thank you for the comment, Mike. Appreciate it. The Democratic Party, certainly I agree with you. There are some far left people in the Democratic Party who are certainly proposing some very, very strange things. My biggest concern, Mike, I love the name too, Miracle Mike, that's cool. I just wished that, Kamala Harris completely gets on the record and outlaws this stuff. Speaking about outlawing things, we might get producer Pam in here to plug in the laptop. She's a little bit flat. Actually, I got this one. I can reach it. My arms aren't that short. Oh, no, I can't. My arms are pretty short. People say I've got little T-Rex arms. They're a little bit little and short. We call them brazitas in Spanish. Brazos is arms. Eaters is little arms. So again, my concern here is that I would really love for Kamala Harris, I don't know how to pronounce that, to completely outlaw capital gains taxes. I mean, she's talking about doing all of these things if she's elected, but people forget she's in office right now. Why not build the wall she keeps talking about to, solve the immigration crisis with the Mexico-California wall? Why not do that now? You have the power to do it. You're the sitting president. You're the acting president. Why not outlaw unrealized capital gains taxes now? This is my biggest concern with Kamala. The fact that she's endorsing and allowing her far left crew of Democrats to do what they want concerns me. So the live stream chat to answer Bitstack P's question should be on Rumble, should be on YouTube and Twitter. I know that we have one of the channel favorites on Rumble. Elaine's over there on Rumble. I've seen her. I could have swore I saw her leave a comment earlier as well. So I'd love to know how many of the Bitcoiners are over there on Rumble supporting the YouTube exile. Love it. Absolutely love it. Again, guys, decentralize everything in your life, not just money, but also communications, also geographical sovereignty. There's lots of different aspects to sovereignty. Always be aware of how to use those different avenues and not just these centralized platforms that we can get kicked off we can get kicked off of at any time. Okay? CB, name anything more communist than unrealized capital gains taxes. Couldn't agree more. It is absolutely useless, illogical, doesn't make any sense. And our politicians will continue doing absolutely ridiculous things, like taking us off the gold standard. That was supposed to be a temporary action. That's what they said. Okay? I don't think so. Just be prepared. 6102 in 1933, it's going to happen again. A 1971 equivalent where they took us off the gold standard. That was supposed to be temporary. How many years has passed? 53 years have passed. We're still not on the gold standard. And your money is losing 10 to 20% of its value every single year. Your superannuation is melting by 10 to 20% every single year. These thieves who are printing money out of the wazoo because they have too much debt. That's every government around the world. Most Western governments have too much debt. They are stealing your purchasing power, your children's future to pay off their debt because they couldn't balance their books. Okay? Again, we're not going to talk about problems all day on this live stream. I think there's enough problem identifiers in the world. This is what I've been saying a lot recently. The world is full of problem identifiers, but nobody has a solution. And this is why, again, we're going to continue doing daily live streams for as long as I can. Sometimes I need a break. Sometimes I travel. Going to Argentina next week and then doing a little bit of a round trip around Suriname and El Salvador for a few different Bitcoin conferences, maybe even pop into Brazil. But this is why we always talk about solutions here on the channel, okay? One of the biggest solutions is this chart right here. Now, on this chart, I've put a few of Standard Chartered's Bitcoin price predictions on the chart in those white lines, okay? And obviously, we can see Bitcoin has been an incredible hedge from the debasement and the mockery that our central planners are putting us through, okay? Bitcoin is an incredible hedge, not only economically, okay? Bitcoin is the best performing asset economically. Doesn't matter if you compare it to stocks, gold, real estate, I don't care. Bitcoin crushes it economically, but also from a sovereignty aspect, okay? You can self-custody your Bitcoin in a way that has no counterparty risk. If you're holding your own Bitcoin in, I thought I had a hardware wallet here somewhere. I always have a few handy for fun. I don't. But if you hold your own Bitcoin, I'm going to show you guys a hardware wallet. In your own hardware wallet, you are safe from the madness that our central planners are putting us through. And let me tell you, they are putting us through a lot of madness recently, and they're going to come for your money, okay? But if you have your Bitcoin on one of these, you are safe from their madness. Your retirement is actually safe because you are holding your money in an asset that can't be debased, can't be inflated, can't be melted away. And that's why I always encourage you guys, go buy a hardware wallet, but also, don't make a mistake, also go and buy yourself some titanium plates from Stampseed that you can actually back up your Bitcoin private seed phrase on, okay? So many people make the mistake of putting that puppy on paper, and that is not what you should be doing. You should be putting that puppy on titanium, okay? As you guys can see from this video, titanium is fireproof. Titanium will survive the test of time. That's why I always encourage you guys to go check out what Stampseed is doing. You guys can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with that promo code Luke15 linked down below. So again, I think the takeaway today, guys, keep an eye on what Standard Chartered is doing. As we can see, the earliest Bitcoin price predictions in 2023, when Bitcoin was under 20K, they've all come true. Bitcoin was at 10K, it was at 15K, 20K. He was calling for 100K. We're now at 65. And I think we're ready for that next leg of the Bitcoin bull market. I hope you guys are ready. It's going to get bullish.